The idea of buying a franchise was meant to be a side business, and after over $450,000 invested, it wound up growing into a $2.4 million franchise business, and in this video, I'm going to tell you my story. So my name is Tariq Johnson. If this is your first time here, I wound up building a 7-figure franchise business in 2 different states, in California and in Florida, owning multiple franchise locations. So in this video, I wanted to share a little bit about my story and how I wind up getting into the franchise business to begin with. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, getting into the franchise business was really always meant to be a side business, and outside of a short period of time, it's never been my full-time income or my full-time role. So at the time, my wife and I were living in California. I was working as a financial advisor, overseeing about $50 million of my clients' money and helping give people advice on a day-to-day basis of how to invest their money, how to plan for retirement, what to do with their money, and overall, how to manage their money. I have a bunch of investment licenses, and so with those investment licenses, they're incredibly regulated. And so because I've pretty much always worked for financial firms or investment firms, and I have those investment licenses, I always have to get permission in order to do anything outside of my work as a financial advisor. And that really started to drive me crazy. I really wanted to set myself in a position to be able to leave my job as a financial advisor because I wanted to share my message at a larger scale. And I wanted to be able to, at some point, write books and be on stage and really teach people about money and create a brand like a Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman or something along those lines. And I felt boxed in with my job as a financial advisor and that I really couldn't do it. I started looking into what were some other ways that I could start generating income and building a side business while operating as a financial advisor. My wife's also been a successful entrepreneur, and we got to talking, and we decided that based on how busy we were, it made sense to open up a franchise because there would be a proven system and process, and we wouldn't have to figure out all the little details. So we decided that we wanted to open up a franchise. And when we did this, we went through the process of narrowing down which franchise business that we wanted to invest in. I made a whole nother video about this, so I'm not gonna get into that in this video, but I'll leave a link here on one of the videos that I posted about how we decided on buying the franchise that we bought and all of that stuff. So once we figured out which franchise that we wanted to open, it turned out that it was gonna be somewhere around $250,000 to $350,000 to get that first business open. That is a lot of money. So at that time, we didn't have $300,000, $350,000 sitting in cash, although we had a pretty decent nest egg. So we decided that we were going to fund the business with a loan, and that's how we were going to get it open. Now, a lot of people, when they open a business or they open a franchise business, they decide to get an SBA loan or a business loan. We decided not to go the route of an SBA or business loan because the interest rates are so much higher. So an SBA or business loan at the time, you pay somewhere between 6 to 8%. We decided at that time that we were gonna take out a home equity loan on our house. So at the time, we were living in an insane house. The house was incredibly beautiful. We had this 5-acre estate in the mountains in California. The house was 6,000 square feet. It had a full court basketball court, and we had a gym in the house. I mean, it was just an absolutely beautiful house. We had a significant amount of equity in the house at the time. It was about a $1.4 million house, and we decided we were going to take the risk and take out a home equity loan on our house. Now, when it comes to funding a business, I mean, this is really a debatable topic, whether someone should take out a home equity loan on their business. At the end of the day, when you're opening up a business and you're becoming an entrepreneur, you have to take risk. There are risks to taking action and there are risks to not taking action. So we decided at that point that we felt confident in our abilities, although we were really nervous, and we decided to take out a home equity loan. So what happened was we wind up first applying for our home equity loan with Wells Fargo. At the time, we were doing most of our banking with Wells Fargo. We applied for this business loan with Wells Fargo, and guess what happened? They rejected us. Wells Fargo rejected us for our home equity loan at the time. This leads to lesson number one in business. Lesson number one in business is do not stop at the first no. The thing is that you're gonna get rejected and you're gonna deal with adversity, and the number one lesson that you can have as a business owner in building a successful business or just creating more wealth for yourself and your family is to keep going when you get rejected or you hit a stumbling block. So at the time, I was making on average about $18,000 a month. My income, about 75% of my income was generated from commissions as a financial advisor based off of the revenue that I generated for my firm. The reason why Wells Fargo rejected us for the loan was because I hadn't been in that role for 2 years yet. And when you are making commission to get a loan, they typically want 2 years of records to get the loan. That threw kind of a wrench in our plan. We wound up applying with Chase for the home equity loan after Wells Fargo turned us down. And for whatever reason, Chase approved us. So checkbox number one is we got our home equity loan, we secured our funding for the business. So now the journey really begins. So now we had to go out and find a location for a franchise business. At this point, we had already paid our $25,000 deposit with the franchisor. So the agreement was signed, the deal was done. We were locked into opening up a franchise location. We had put $25,000 of our money on the line. There was no turning back at this point, or at least if we turned back, we weren't going to get our $25,000 back. Lesson number two in business is have skin in the game. And if you have skin in the game, generally you're going to be willing to do whatever it takes to step up and make that business succeed. So we wind up picking out a location that was about 10 minutes from our house. We were adamant about picking that location. It was in a shopping center that had not been built yet. It was a dirt lot when we signed our lease. I mean, there was literally nothing there. The lot was just dirt, nothing. No buildings, there was no plumbing underneath the lot or anything like that. And so we signed our lease at that location feeling very confident about the location, but also nervous because there was no track record. Like there were no customers already going to the shopping center. I mean, it was really a pretty big risk to decide that we were going to open up our location in a shopping center that wasn't built yet. There was no traffic, there was no habits and patterns of people going to that shopping center. It turns out that wind up being one of the things that proved to be in our favor. So we signed our lease in April of 2016. We didn't actually get the raw space, meaning the building, that we could start building out and doing the construction ourselves to make it actually look like a business. But we got the raw space in August of 2017. It took us about 8 weeks to build out that location. And in November of 2017, we opened our doors for the first time. Now, it was a very exciting moment. I was incredibly nervous. I worked about 12 or 14 hours that day from open to close. I think we opened at 7 a.m. I was there at 6 or 6:30 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night. So pulled a really long day. I believe on our first day, we did about $700 in sales, I think, which was really exciting because opening up for the first time, we had no idea if the business was going to succeed at all. And, fast forward to the business, we wind up having days that we did well over $2,000, $3,000 a day in that business in sales and how much we were generating. But we started out doing $700 a day. Now, something important to note here that was a really key part is that when we were negotiating our lease, we decided to hire an attorney to help negotiate our lease that we paid $3,500 for to help negotiate the fine print of the lease. And we really didn't want to because by that time we had already negotiated like most of the main points of the lease, the price per square foot, the amount of free rent that we got. And one of the things that helped us a lot was that we negotiated 7 months of free rent. So we took possession of the raw space in August of 2017, and then we didn't pay our first rent check, I think, until April of 2017. So that was one of the things that helped us get to profitability very, very quick. And it was something that we were very strategic and tactical about negotiating on the front end. So we wind up being profitable our second month in business. And if you're new to this channel, I created my 7-step blueprint to business profits in 60 days. I basically documented how we got that business profitable between marketing and decision-making processes. And it's a step-by-step guide that's it takes 10 minutes to read. You can grab my 7-step blueprint to business profits in 60 days at my website, tariqjohnson.com. Make sure you download it. It's a really quick read and it'll help you out a lot. So in 2017, because we opened in November, we wind up doing somewhere around $40,000 in sales for that year. In 2018, I basically just continued that game plan and I put together some marketing strategies that I had really, really believed in. And it was mostly digital type marketing strategies. At the time, no one in the franchise company was using those strategies. And I basically doubled and tripled down on social media marketing and digital marketing. I felt like I could get the biggest reach for the most cost-effective spend by doing digital marketing. And the strategy worked. So in 2018, we did over $470,000 in sales. It really put us around the middle of the pack for the franchise company as a whole in terms of sales for the location. But keep in mind, we had only been open for about a year. And you hear a lot of things online, kind of the cliche, don't expect the business to be profitable until their third year in business. Well, we were profitable our second month of business, and we wound up remaining profitable ever since. We never had a month that we did not make a profit in that business. So in July of 2018, my wife and I decided that we wanted to actually go ahead and move to Florida. So we had our business there in California. Turns out there was a franchise location, an existing location for sale in Florida in the area that we wanted to move to. That location had been struggling. The owner at the time wasn't really running the store that well. So we had the opportunity and go buy that location at a pretty darn good price. So remember that I told you when we opened up our first location in California, we used a home equity line of credit in order to pay for that business. So here's what happened. We sold our house in California when we moved, and that line of credit wound up getting paid off. So now at this point, we're moving to Florida. Our business is completely paid off in California. So now it's even more profitable because we don't have any sort of loan payment that we're making on the business. And so now our income has just increased because there's no debt on the business. So in looking at the location to buy in Florida, my wife and I were talking, and we really didn't want to take out debt to buy the location in Florida. Plus, because that location was right on the brink of profitability, we didn't feel like taking out debt was the smartest move, because having a loan payment or not having a loan payment could be the difference between having a profitable business and not having a profitable business. So we decided we wanted to figure out how could we buy this business in cash if that's what we wanted to do. Well, at the time, I had a rental/investment property in Virginia. Turns out it was my very first home that I had bought when I was about 21 or 22 years old. And I had been renting out this property for the last 7 or 8 years, actually making a little bit of cash flow and a little bit of a passive income on that rental property. The value had increased pretty significantly on the property, so I decided at that time that it was a great time to sell my investment property in Virginia. So I wound up selling that investment property, was able to get a nice lump sum of cash from selling that investment property. And with that cash in hand, my wife and I decided to both put 50-50, 50% from some of her business funds and savings that she had, and 50% from the money that I had made from selling my property. So we took those monies and we wind up paying cash for the location in Florida. So keep in mind, throughout all of this, we still have the location in California. That location is still up and running. I have a store manager in place there at that store. And at some point throughout all of this, the manager that I had in place that had been with me since I opened the store in California decided that she was going to leave. And not only was she going to leave, but she decided that I guess it was too risky for her to be transparent and honest that she was looking at other opportunities. Turns out her family was actually raising money for her to be able to buy her own type of food business that she would run. and she was raising money from her family. So instead of letting me know ahead of time, she decided that she would let me know about a week or a week and a half that she was going to be leaving. And so I had to wind up flying out to California last minute to start looking and searching for a new manager to run that location, because at this point I'm 2,500 miles away from the location. If anything happens at the location, I need someone that I can trust that can handle everything, because to hop on a plane every time, one, is not really realistic. Two, it's expensive. I mean, a flight from Florida to California would cost somewhere around $400 to $600 every time. So if I'm having to do that once a month, that's $400 to $600 of additional expenses that gets reduced from a cash flow of our business. And right before we moved from California to Florida, literally 2 weeks before we moved, someone in the middle of the night at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning smashed the window to our store as well as a couple of other stores in our shopping center. So they broke in. I mean, they just did a bunch of damage. They ripped our safe out from the floor, and it was a big mess. So while we were moving to Florida, this is what I was dealing with, trying to coordinate with the insurance company and the police and buy a new safe and get it installed. I mean, it was just really a pain. And when I look back at our business and think of some of the obstacles that we had, it really was all worth it. And lesson number 3 is that in business, expect things to go wrong. This is so powerful, because if you have the expectation that stuff will happen and something will go wrong in business, when it happens, it's not as big of a deal. The reality is that when challenges happen in your business, if you're gonna freak out and stress out over it, it's not gonna change anything. The reality is, what happened, happened. The only thing you can do is try to figure out either how to avoid it in the future or how to resolve the problem. Dwelling on it really is not going to do you any good. So because we were buying that location in Florida, I wound up deciding not to go back to financial services right away so that I could really focus on getting a solid foundation under the business in Florida. And I will tell you, it was challenging. The staff there had pretty much been used to being able to really do whatever they wanted in the business. My style of owning and operating my franchise in California, I had built the reputation as probably one of the toughest and most strict owners in the entire system. But because of that, I also had one of the highest rated stores in the entire system in a variety of different metrics. We were in the top 10 in all of the operational metrics for that store, and it was because I had a really high standard on how we ran that business. So I was experiencing challenge after challenge with some of the employees in the location in Florida. We wound up having to let go of a few quit. We went through a lot of turnover. Eventually we wind up getting traction, but it wasn't after making a good amount of mistakes in that business. And there was a couple of months there where we took some significant losses in the first few months of that business. But at about 6 months or so, I was able to get things turned around. We hit the streets a lot. I mean, I was having to go to a lot of marketing events and sponsoring schools and teams, and it was a lot different work than I did at the location in California. Because of the way that the location in California was set up and the opportunity in being in a brand new shopping center, we really hit the ground running. This business in Florida had some baggage to it, and it had a track record of really not making customers happy. So I had to go out in the marketplace in the community and show my face and show that I was a new owner and that I was here to gain back customers' trust and loyalty, and that the way that I was going to run the business was different than the way that the business was run before. So in 2019, we increased sales in that business, and we wind up doing about $418,000 in sales at the location in Florida in the first full year of owning it, and we were able to become profitable in that business that year as well. So now we had 2 locations up and running. So here's what wound up happening. Let me give you a breakdown of the numbers. So the store in California in 2017, we did about $40,000 in sales. In 2018, we did about $470,000 in sales. In 2019, we did just over $500,000 in sales, so we hit the $500,000 mark in that business. I think we did $501,000 in sales in 2019. And in 2020, although the year has not ended yet, we were on pace to hit $550,000 in sales. Even despite COVID, the business was up 10% year over year, which is crazy. And I feel so blessed and fortunate in saying that because I know there are so many people that have been struggling during the time of COVID. So we wind up deciding for the California store, we actually sold that location at the end of September. There were a lot of things happening in California, minimum wage going up, the COVID situation, as well as the fact that the location is just 2,500 miles away, being on 2 different time zones. After a few years, it really just got sick of it and didn't feel like I was fully maximizing the potential of that opportunity. So I was able to cash out of that business and sell that business, which was so exciting and such a beautiful thing. And I'll talk about that in just a moment and what we're going to do with that cash that we have now from selling that business, because remember, that business was completely paid off. So now the store in Florida in 2018, because we took over somewhere in August, we had done about $120,000 in sales. 2019, we did about $418,000 in sales. And then in 2020, we're on pace to do over $450,000 in sales. So the great news is that we're trending being up in that business, and that business has continued to do very well. Actually, in January, February, and March of 2020, right before COVID hit, we were up about 35% year over year, our sales from 2019 to 2020 in the first quarter of that year. And then when COVID hit, we did take a pretty big dive in April because that location is by the beach and people really weren't traveling or going to the beach or really doing anything like that for the first month or two during COVID. So there's probably I'd say about another $30,000 to $40,000 in sales that we missed out on. If the COVID situation didn't happen, our franchise would have probably done somewhere around $480,000 to $490,000 in sales, and we would have been up almost 20% year over year in that business, which is incredibly exciting. So when you add up all those numbers, it winds up totaling about somewhere between $2.3 and $2.4 million in sales that those franchise businesses have generated over the last 3 years. Now, yes, I know what some of you are going to say. Just because you generate $2.4 million in sales doesn't mean you actually make $2.4 million. Yes, I get that. And it's the same thing with your job. If you make $100,000 in salary at your job, you're also not going to keep all of that money because you're going to pay taxes. You have some benefits that you're going to be paying for. You have your 401k. You have a variety of different things. The great thing about owning a business and owning a franchise business and creating wealth are the different tax deductions that you get to take advantage of as being a business owner, as well as some of the retirement plans that you get access to in being a business owner, where you can contribute much more potentially than you can contribute when you have just a regular IRA. So now that we sold our store in California, we've got a good chunk of money sitting in cash at the moment. And so my wife and I are actively looking at various different opportunities to go put that cash to work, to make sure that that money is keep growing and that we can continue to build passive income as well as build our wealth and create freedom for our family. So make sure you stay tuned to my channel, because I'm going to be taking a look at some other franchise opportunities and businesses to buy to see if that makes sense for the cash. I'm also going to be taking a look at some real estate investing opportunities, maybe even some short-term rentals or some Airbnb investment opportunities, as well as taking a look at putting some of that money in the stock market and taking advantage of the growth and the liquidity that you can have in the stock market. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button below, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the journey of what winds up happening with the money that we wind up investing to create additional wealth for our family. And I will continue to share tips and strategies with you so that you can use the same strategies to create wealth for yourself. I'll see you in the next one.